Hello and welcome to the Discover History YouTube channel, and we've now jumped over from June and we're into July. And the interesting thing is July is meant to be a celebration of plastic free. Go plastic free. Now, I always say to school children when we're talking about the Stone Age, the Stone Age was called the Stone Age because pretty much all the tools that were used by people then was made out of stone. And then we go on to that small period where a bit of copper was being used and a bit of tin was being used, and then we're launched into the Bronze and Iron Age. I always say to children that we're probably in, to be fair, the age of plastic. We should be calling modern times the plastic age. However, as we now know, plastic is becoming a major problem. We're going to be digging it up on archaeological sites in the future for literally thousands of years, and we now know that as plastic breaks down in the sea and fish are eating them, for example, we're actually consuming the plastic, the products that we've had let's say 30, 40, even 100 years ago. So it's a shocking thing, really. Plastic is not a brilliant thing. So we thought, what's similar to plastic that our ancestors used 100 years ago, 200 years ago, or even further back than that? And the answer is, very simply, this stuff. Cow's horn. You've only got to tap it and it does sound like plastic. There we go. When we go into a school and we show this, as soon as we tap it and ask children what it's made from, they usually tell us plastic. However, I think we should be using more of this, and this substance is cow's horn. And obviously this would have come from a cow, and technically it's a byproduct, really. So we're going to eat the meat, that's the beef. If you go back to the Stone Age, they would have used the skins for clothing, or we still do today, that's leather. They would have used the blood, they would have used the ligaments, for example, the brain, certain internal organs. Even if they're not eating them, certain internal organs can be used as bait, for example. So basically we're in a wasteful society today, really. So what we should be using are more byproducts. So for example, horn. And I must say, cow's horn is the plastic that we should be using, really. Go plastic free this month. Maybe look at an alternative. Go and find some cow's horn products, for example. So how would you turn this into something that you can use? Well, very simply, when you take the cow's horn off, it's usually got a core inside. Well, you don't need the core. So what you usually do is take the core out. So you pull the core out, you get rid of that, and then all you do is you clean up the inside. And even in that format, you can use it. We know, for example, doctors, Roman doctors, medicus. We also know medieval monks as well often used to make medicines in here and then put a wooden stopper in it, very much like medical bottles that you find on shelves of chemist shops even today. So it's a useful thing. You can also cut them very, very short and use them as inkwells. We know monks in medieval monasteries used to use them as inkwells as well. And obviously the most iconic thing is we know Vikings drank out of drinking horns, and obviously they don't need to alter it too much. However, saying that, they often put a silver or gold decorative ring around the top there, and often carved into it as well. So a cow's horn is very useful, but you're probably thinking, well, you can only use it for items of that shape. But the truth is, cow's horn is like plastic. It's a very versatile substance. And if you boil this in a pot for a long period of time, it becomes very, very soft. And the reason why that is because it's the same material is what our fingernails are made of. And there is a famous saying that if you have a bath and then you cut your fingernails or your toenails, it's easier to cut, for example. And that's the same with horn. So you boil it away, you boil it down, and it will become very soft. You'll be able to squeeze it. And then what you need to do then is slice it down the middle and fold it flat. And then you can pretty much make it into whatever you want with a bit of heat and water as a mould. Now, we know Vikings, Romans as well, sometimes used horn for window glass, and people say, well, how can that become window glass? Well, very simply, if you boil it, slice it, fold it flat, cut it, and you will have something that looks like that, and that is cow's horn. And if you set that into wood, overlapping, very much like tiles on a roof, that would act as a window. It will stop the rain coming in, the wind coming in, stop the drafts coming in, but it will always let in light. It's actually a very good substance, cow's horn. It's surprising what you can make out of it. Talking about windows though, as I said, Vikings, Roman windows could be made out of cow's horn. The most famous thing that cow's horn was made out of in a window format really was lantern glass. Now, when we think of a lantern today, we think of it having panes of glass in. Well, that's really a Victorian thing. The earliest lanterns were actually called lanthorns, and that was because instead of the glass, we actually have pieces of cow's horn. Now, this is my lanthorn here, and as you can see, it's surrounded with panes, not of glass, but of cow's horn. And very simply, a candle sits inside here and it gives off the light. It's absolutely a fantastic idea. But a lot of domestic things were made out of cow's horn in days gone by. For example, we've already mentioned the drinking cup. Well, if you cut the end off a cow's horn and also heat and bend it, you can also create a tankard like this one here. All we've done is put a wooden stopper in the end, and we've also put a bit of pine pitch in there, or any form of sap, and it seals it. It makes it a waterproof drinking cup that you can drink your beer, ale and cider from. So it's very useful stuff. As I said, cow's horn should be used more. It should be used instead as an alternative to plastic. You can also make small beakers from cow's horn. There we go, small version of it. So if you're a wine drinker and not a beer drinker, you can still drink your wine, but this time out of a beaker made out of cow's horn. Very useful stuff, as I said. Once you've folded it flat, you can actually cut it to whatever shape that you want. So if you cut it down here and here, and then make it round at the top there, you can also heat the middle of it, put some weight on it, and you can actually create a spoon. A very useful spoon, also made out of cow's horn. Cow's horn is a very versatile substance. It should be used a lot more than it is. We've also got here a knife. Well, obviously the knife isn't made out of cow's horn, but the actual handle is polished cow's horn, pegged into place with tiny little bronze tacks. There we go. So as I said, use it for anything. If you think of our ancestors for combing their hair, combs were often made out of wood. They could also be made out of bone, but they also used, you guessed it, cow's horn again. Very much like a knit comb. Main reason for that is our ancestors, like we have today, did have problems with things crawling around on them, basically, more so then than they did today, and therefore a nice fine tooth comb is brilliant. Very difficult to make, by the way, these are. I have seen one being made before, and it's very difficult because you have to get a saw and you cut down individually all the little teeth. And the problem is, sometimes you can snap them off, and when you snap them off, it's basically thrown away because no one wants to buy a broken comb. Interesting fact, in Newport Street in Worcester, we know there was a lot of horn working going on because during the archaeological dig, before the big development took place down there, there was all sorts of offcuts of cow's horn that amazingly was preserved in the ground, and we found all sorts of things, including broken combs, which is obviously where a horn worker was working, made a few mistakes, and it was just cast to one side. But they are very useful things. This one has got a fine tooth comb and also a wider one on the back there. You do find Viking horn combs. Some of them are tiny little things, and these would have been used, believe it or not, for combing the moustaches and the beards of the Vikings. Saying that, remember though, Not all Vikings had beards and moustaches. We've got musical instruments as well. It's surprising what you can make out of cow's horn, and obviously the best thing you can do is make the spout of the horn a little bit smaller, and therefore it becomes a hunting horn. And we've all seen the illustrations, especially from the medieval and Tudor period, that when, for example, the fox is spotted or the deer is spotted, someone within the hunting party will bring forward the cow's horn and blow it to tell everyone that the deer or the fox is sighted, and then everyone would gallop after it. So we've got combs, we've got knife handles, we've got cups, we've even got window glass and musical instruments, all making use of that amazing substance, not plastic, but cow's horn. When it comes to the military, they were obviously going to jump on cow's horn because there was two properties with cow's horn. One is it's waterproof, as we've already said. It's the plastic of the day. You can hold liquids in it, you can hold powders in it, and it won't get wet. The second reason is it's extremely strong. Now, if you take a closer look at a medieval arrow, for example, yes, it's made out of wood. Yes, it has an iron point on it. Yes, it has goose feathers glued and also tied on, as you can see there. But what people don't realise is bows, especially medieval bows, were that powerful with 100 to 100 pound pull on them. If you shoot an arrow that's just wood, you could end up splitting the shaft straight down the middle just by the force of the string and the wood. So what you should have on all bows is at the very top here, to strengthen what is known as the nook. What they do is they usually cut a tiny little hole or a tiny little slit into the woodwork, into the shaft, and then they would take cow's horn, glue it and slot it into place, and then file off the edges. So what you should end up with is a small slither of cow's horn, and it actually strengthens the nook, which is going to take the power of the wood and the string, forcing that arrow through the air. So it's a useful thing. By for example, the 18th century, it was becoming more popular than ever to carry gunpowder in a waterproof container. Yes, they had cartridges made out of paper. Yes, they were carried in cartridge pouches, but it was also quite common for people to carry gunpowder in a powder horn. And the reason for this, once again, is it's very strong. That's why the military are going to use this type of technology. And the second thing, it's waterproof. This should hold the gunpowder inside, completely waterproof, and therefore enabling you to shoot your musket even when it's pouring down a rain. Fingers crossed. So as you can see, we're now into July, and we always like to be topical, and this July is plastic free July. So hopefully if you're watching this, you're probably thinking, well, actually we could put plastic to one side, and if you want something that's strong, very versatile, and also, and the main reason for very, very waterproof, then maybe we should look at things like cow's horn. It's not a bad product to use. It's surprising how many things can be made out of it. Anyway, on that note, we'd like to wish you a good weekend. I know it's only Thursday, but it's not that far away. And look out for our video tomorrow. But please make sure you subscribe and let us know what you want to see. Anyway, on that note, stay safe and we'll see you soon.